The bruises were small at first, barely visible beneath the sleeve of her cardigan. But Marcus Chen had spent 3 years as a single father learning to notice the details others missed. He saw it when Emma reached up to grab a book from the high shelf for his daughter Lily. The fabric shifted, revealing a constellation of purple and yellow marks that wrapped around her wrist like a terrible bracelet. His stomach dropped, but he said nothing. Not yet. Emma had been Lily's babysitter for 6 months. At 23, she was studying nursing at the community college while working 3 part-time jobs. She arrived at his modest Brooklyn apartment every Tuesday and Thursday evening with the same gentle smile, the same patient energy that had transformed his anxious 7-year-old daughter into a child who actually looked forward to bedtime stories. Marcus had hired her during the darkest period of his life, 2 years after his wife Sarah's death from cancer, when he was barely holding himself together between his job as a hospital orderly and single parenthood. Emma had been a godsend, someone who understood that Lily needed more than just supervision. She needed someone who would listen when she talked about missing her mother, who would hold her when the grief came in unexpected waves. But tonight, something was different. Emma moved carefully, wincing when she bent to pick up Lily's scattered toys. When she thought no one was watching, her hand drifted to her ribs, pressing gently as if testing for damage. Marcus pretended to focus on packing his lunch for the night shift while watching her in his peripheral vision. He'd seen those movements before, in the emergency room where he worked, in the faces of patients who came in with injuries they couldn't quite explain. The careful walking, the practiced smiles that didn't reach the eyes, the way someone holds their body when they're trying to hide pain. After Lily fell asleep, Marcus found Emma in the kitchen, washing the dinner dishes that he'd told her countless times she didn't need to clean. Her hands were submerged in soapy water, and this time he saw them clearly, the bruises on both wrists, the fading mark on her forearm that looked suspiciously like fingers. "Emma," he said softly, not wanting to startle her. She turned, and for just a moment, he saw fear flash across her face before she replaced it with that practiced smile. "Yes, Mr. Chen, it's Marcus. I've told you that." He pulled out a chair at the small kitchen table. "Can you sit for a minute? Please." She dried her hands slowly, buying time. When she finally sat down, she kept her arms crossed, hiding the evidence. Marcus had rehearsed this conversation in his head for the past hour, but now all his prepared words evaporated. He'd been on the other side of this too many times at the hospital, watching nurses and doctors try to coax the truth from patients who were terrified to speak. He'd seen the delicate dance of offering help without pushing too hard, of creating safety in a world that felt anything but safe. "I'm not going to ask you questions you're not ready to answer," he began, his voice gentle. "But I need you to know that I see you. I see that you're hurt. And I see that you're scared." Emma's composure cracked. Her eyes filled with tears that she blinked back furiously. "I'm fine. I bruise easily. It's nothing, Emma." He leaned forward, keeping his hands visible on the table, non-threatening. "I work in an ER. I know what nothing looks like, and this isn't it." The silence stretched between them, filled only by the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic on the street below. Marcus waited. He'd learned patience in the years since Sarah's death, learned that sometimes the most powerful thing you could do was simply be present, creating space for truth. Finally, Emma's shoulders sagged. "It's my boyfriend. Ex-boyfriend. I broke up with him 3 weeks ago, but he won't," her voice broke. "He won't leave me alone. He shows up at my apartment. At my classes. He says if I tell anyone, he'll make it worse. He says no one will believe me anyway because he's never hit my face." The words tumbled out like water from a broken dam. She told him about Jake, the charming guy she'd met at college who had slowly isolated her from friends and family. About how the control had escalated to violence. About how she was too ashamed to tell her parents, who'd warned her about moving to the city. About how she was working 3 jobs to save enough money to move apartments, to somewhere Jake couldn't find her. Marcus listened, his heart breaking for this young woman who had shown his daughter such kindness while carrying her own unbearable weight. When she finished, her face was wet with tears, and she looked terrified, as if expecting him to tell her this was all her fault, or worse, that he didn't believe her. Instead, he reached across the table, slowly, carefully, and placed a napkin near her hand. "First, I believe you. Second, you're not alone anymore. And third, we're going to figure this out together. But I can't afford. My cousin runs a women's shelter in Queens. She can get you in tonight if you want. Safe place, no questions, no judgment. He pulled out his phone. And I know a lawyer who does pro bono work for protective orders. My wife, before she died, she volunteered there. They'll help you. Emma stared at him, disbelief and hope warring on her face. Why would you do this? You barely know me. Marcus thought about Sarah, about all the times she'd told him that kindness was never wasted, that helping one person might not change the world but it could change the world for that one person. He thought about Lily, sleeping peacefully in the next room because Emma had made her feel safe. He thought about all the small moments of grace that had carried him through his own darkness. Because someone helped me when I was drowning, he said simply. And because you've been helping my daughter heal for 6 months. Because that's what we do, we help each other. That night, Marcus called his supervisor and took a personal day. He drove Emma to collect her essential belongings from her apartment while a police officer, another friend from the hospital, stood watch. He helped her file a protective order. He connected her with his cousin at the shelter and gave her the number for the lawyer. 3 months later, Emma testified against Jake, who was convicted and sentenced. She moved into a safer apartment, coincidentally in Marcus's building, 2 floors down, with rent she could actually afford. She continued to babysit Lily, but now she did it without fear, without bruises, without looking over her shoulder. On the first anniversary of that kitchen conversation, Emma knocked on Marcus's door holding a card and a small houseplant. Inside, she'd written simply, "Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for teaching Lily, and me, that family isn't just blood. It's the people who show up when you need them most." Asterisk. Marcus displayed the card on his refrigerator, right next to Lily's drawings and Sarah's favorite recipe. That night, as he tucked his daughter into bed, she asked him why Emma had been crying happy tears earlier. Because sometimes, he told her, the bravest thing someone can do is accept help. And sometimes the most important thing we can do is offer it. In a world that often felt too harsh, too complicated, Marcus had learned the truth that Sarah always knew: humanity's greatest power wasn't in grand gestures, but in noticing someone's pain and choosing not to look away. It was in the quiet moments when one person extends a hand and another finds the courage to take it. It was proof that even in our darkest moments, we're never truly alone, not if we're brave enough to see each other, to help each other, to be the light someone else desperately needs.